Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beloveds. Geeia Ariati here. And this is a nice, beautiful, raw one. And one that's very loud and alive in my field. And I want to share from a place of embodied wisdom, interpretation, and from some of my journey as to why this is important, not from a historical standpoint, but also from the point of what the feminine is rising into at this point in our collective journey for new earth development and for new earth evolvement, as well as the karmic reconciliation and transformation that is taking place. So if you have not witnessed any of my videos or lives before, I am a oracle, a channel. I run a mystery school, two actually, one for New Earth individuals, for men and women who want to be in New Earth embodied consciousness, and for others, the women in women's embodiment, which is the Purity of Isis mystery school, which helps women to go through the purification process of the Baraka process, which allows them to activate their own unique medicine and magic and to live an aligned life by their soul medicine. And this is where this message actually comes from. And I guess to give a little bit of history, we need to understand a little bit around what women have moved through the different points of the patriarchal constructs of reality. And it is a challenging one because it is something that every woman that's on this journey or not on this journey feels this pull, this tug of war. And it is really no different for men, only from a different perspective. But what we're going to do is we're going to speak about it from the lens of woman, because I serve the feminine rising. Although I work with the 144 and I support new earthers, my main point of focus is blueprint reading, building business blueprints by soul for women specifically. So I work with the New Earth Goddess, I work with Priestess, and I assist women to become embodied in their medicine and magic. So because of this, I'm going to focus on the feminine perspective. The feminine perspective is definitely a little bit different to the masculine in the form of women throughout history have been given a choice to either be on purpose or to choose the love of their family. Now, what we'll see in modern day and in day-to-day society everywhere around you is women that feel that they either can't do both, but they attempt to, and they're working a job as well as a family life, and they feel like they're failing in both. They feel like they're not patient enough with their kids. They don't have enough energy to love their husband. They're feeling as if they don't have enough to provide for their friends, their family. They feel stretched. They feel a point of inability to do both. And if they're really successful at their family life, they feel like they have separated or disconnected from their purpose, their vision, their dreams, their desires for the future. And women spend a lot of time tethering between. And it is very, 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 very rare that you will find a woman that feels like she's mastered family, relationship, and business and purpose. And that's because of a massive fragmentation in the collective consciousness. And that fragmentation began in the beginning of the time of our history on Earth as human beings, which is at many different points of time where high profile women were guided to choose. They had to choose motherhood, or they had to choose God. They had to choose motherhood, or they had to choose to reign a kingdom or a queendom. They had to choose their family, or they had to choose their medicine, because the way to keep the feminine suppressed, the way to keep control, is to continue to make a woman choose between what she loves. Now, a woman cannot be in her fullness and her totality until she sits in love and purpose. A woman has to be in love and purpose to feel whole. And the challenge with this is that they separate them because of history. Now, some of these moments of time, I have in direct remembrance of the time in Egypt where the goddess and the woman in the temples and those in devotion to God had to send their children to these little towns or civilizations, you could say, these communities outside of the main areas of devotional practice and the empires, for their children to be raised by other women, and to be supported in a space where they were not becoming a burden, where their focus wasn't being broken, where they had the ability to sit in mastery. And so the Egyptian times were that goddess gave their newborn infant over, and their child was taken away until they were 14 years old. So that first 14 years, they did not raise their child, and then their child came back as a young priestess or a young priest, and then began the initiation process. And so there was a big disconnection. There was not a level of closeness. There was not a level of feeling. It created a lot of heartbreak. And there was a forcing of choosing. Do I choose my devotion to God? Do I choose my service, my purpose, or do I choose my family? Now, because I've worked so much with priestess in this time, I've spent a lot of time assisting. I see this every day. I see women choosing, not knowing to choose their purpose or to choose their divine union, not knowing if to choose their purpose in their business or to choose their family. And they feel separate and separated from this over and over and over again, because the division point and the separation point is the thinking that you have to choose, and they're not the same thing. And in truth, they are. Because women come embodied as a soul in a female biology to live a life of love. Now, if there's anything that anyone takes from this, whether you're male or female listening to this, women choose a life of love. Men choose a life of purpose. That's a biological framework of hormones, physiology, and interpretation of the mental way that this vessel works. So all women and all men choose to come in a focus of love or purpose. Now, for women, being that they're here to live in love, that doesn't mean they're not to be in purpose. It means that they love through purpose. They live a life of love by pouring love into family, into partner, into creation. So love is what generates their life experience. To be loving towards their garden, to be loving towards their friend, to be loving towards creating, cooking, and doing all of these different experiences. That's what woman chooses, is to live through love. And then all of those other expressions become the purpose of that love, become the overflow of that love. Now, men come to experience through purpose. It doesn't mean that they won't experience love, right? Because the purpose might be to love. The purpose might be to create. The purpose might be to have family. The purpose might be to share the wisdom, the knowledge, the lineage. The purpose is the focus. And this comes from I am a man, I am woman. And this is where we look at something so simple. And how I first heard it was when I was very confused with my purpose. I was very confused with my family, and I was struggling a lot with my femininity. And I had a very masculine man say, well, a tree doesn't question if it's a tree. So why would a woman question herself as a woman? Why would a man question himself as a man? And I know it sounds ridiculous in some viewpoints, right? But the truth is that if we didn't question what a man is, and we didn't question what a woman was, and we didn't start creating all of these manipulations of what men and women are, and these mutations of sexes, and these different identities that are just further confusing us, we would be able to find our truth very quickly. If we went back into the roots, and if we look at the different ways tribes have worked in harmony and have felt a sense of true connection to themselves at the best of our capacity in the human history is when we held our role as man and woman. But how has that evolved now? Because there being woman does not mean letting go of the things that light you up. Now, for understanding of this, I will share a bit of my story to assist this message, to make sense of this for women and for men, is that I am a woman that has always had a very, very strong drive and desire for purpose. I've always wanted to be influential. I've always wanted to be of huge contribution. I've always wanted to share a message to help humanity. I've always wanted to have a big ripple effect. And my drive was to make change, to reduce suffering, to help people not feeling pain, right? My driver was the separation point, was drive someone to connection, help them find God, help them find peace, help them find communion, union, help them find that. Now, obviously, that was my journey myself. It was to take myself through a process of self-commitment, self-devotion, which was the purpose. The purpose was self-transcendence, to get to a point of communion and union with self in a way that provided me love. I loved my contribution to humanity. I love humanity itself. I love the earth. I love this reality. I love service. I loved all of those things. And so my pouring of feminine love was poured into my clients. Every one of my clients was a child. And I would pour this overflow of love into my soul family. And I would to my business, and I would pour it into myself. And that was my fulfillment. That was when I knew love for the first time really in my life, sustainably, was coming to that point within myself. But what did I do to get there? I did the opposing. I did what history taught me. You have to choose purpose over your family. And I stepped away from my family because I was too traumatized to be able to choose both. I couldn't see the middle way. I didn't know the pathway that provided me family, partner, and purpose. So I sacrificed myself as woman to devote to myself in self-love, to devote to myself in self-healing, to devote to myself in contribution, so I could feel and live in love. And that's how I lived in love, until I chose to evolve to the next level of evolution. And that next level of evolution was, not only do I want to live in love here, but I want to live in love with other. I want to live in love with family. I want to live in love with community. And so that level of no longer being driven by self-purpose, it became self and other purpose. It became all purpose. And that means dissolving that barrier of choosing family or love or purpose or business. It means marrying the middle way. How is my purpose connected to that of support to my family, which is very challenging. It's a challenging concept because most women are trying to create a purpose that is not actually in coherence or alignment with their family. They're not recognizing that their purpose is in contribution and support to their family. And so there is a disconnect. There is a separation point because it's still seen as separate instead of seeing them as one. If I'm living on purpose, I'm also loving my family. If I'm living on purpose, I'm also loving my partner. If I'm living on purpose, I'm also loving my community. So what is that thing that I have that supplies and gives that? Now, I'm grateful and lucky that I have one that although it was service to other or service to collective, it was helping women and rise, women remember their medicine, their magic, initiating them through the realms of transcendence and the different chakra systems, and through the ancient medicine and wisdoms of mystery school and all of those different things. I'm still helping women come into the recognition. And over and over and over, I've told my initiates, you don't have to give up your children to be on purpose. You don't have to do what I did. Trust me, you don't need to do that. There is always a middle way. There is always a way where you get to choose it all. There is always a way where you get to have both. And if you're choosing something separate, it's because there is some kind of wounding, disconnection, and inability to find the middle way. And you require a temporary separation point until you recircle back around. And unfortunately, too many women are going through this, where they're being separated through broken families, through family court, through child alienation, through mental illness, through addiction, to try and find themselves where they are separating from family. They are separating from the love of their children and mother and partner and the nurturer and the caregiver, and they're finding that in different ways before they can recommune and reconnect. But the point of now is that you can have both. And if you know your blueprint, if you know the fragmentations in your blueprint and what you're here to learn as a soul, to reconcile and become embodied in, if you know the pathways, and if you start to discover, then you can have both with very little of swinging between poles. Because that's what happens, is human beings will, I'll discover myself in the feminine lens. I'll then discover myself in the masculine lens. And then I might go back to the feminine, and then I'll go to the masculine, and so on and so forth, until that separation point becomes that of what you would call divine union with self, other, energy, the unity consciousness, where you don't see yourself as neither masculine nor feminine, but you can live in the presence of truth. You can live in the presence where you don't see your left-hand side as masculine, you don't see your left-hand side as feminine and your right-hand side as masculine. See, because I've dissolved that. It's no longer my story. This is me. I don't see any part of me as being more masculine or more feminine. I don't see the above or the below as more heavenly or hell. It's all one reality, because that's what I worked to come to. So I could work on being present here, now, and see it all as one, so I could live the life I desired. And so this is what it is for the feminine walking this path now, is they're here to live love and purpose. They're here not to sacrifice family for business. They're here not to sacrifice relationship for success. It is about, how do I do both, by seeing the perspective that guides both. So mine, obviously, as I've said, is I work with women to find their purpose, and so they can live their purpose aligned with their soul, which means that most of these women actually have their family in their soul's blueprint. They have family businesses. They have visions or creative ideas that support their children, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's art classes, whether it's some kind of design. Every single woman that I've ever worked with has a blueprint that has a business model, a purpose offering that's based on their own heart's gifts, their own ability to share, to love, to nourish, to provide a service, and also put that into their others and support their others. Every single one. And this is the opportunity that we have as woman, as man, is to start to see that sacrifice is no longer supportive to bringing in new earth consciousness. Sacrificing your true heart's desires. If your desire is to work with a divine union couple to provide that magic to the world, then that's your heart desire, and you can have both. But whilst you still tether between these realities, you can't find the pathway to create both. So what is the perspective shifts? What is the necessity? What is the change that's required for you to see what it is? And this allows for that pathway to be built for you rather than against you, rather than you having to step between to navigate and weave it. I know for me, when I landed in this new earth consciousness, it was very different to my old earth. My old earth consciousness was actually quite happy to maintain a service to self, service to self and God, and have that ripple out. I was quite happy in that new earth perspective, to be autonomous, to build an empire. As long as I could be of contribution, of massive change, I didn't mind if it meant that I didn't have a family or relationship. I'd gotten to a point of acceptance. But my new earth self, that's not the driver. The collective, the transformation, the service, the awakening of the earth is no longer the driver. The driver for me now in my new earth is that I want to live a life of love with a partner. I want to focus on building a family. I want to have a child. I want to build something that I haven't had before in any of my incarnations, because that's true love to me, is I get to have both. So how do I go from focusing on collective and awakening and sharing messages to the 144 and doing all of this in God's grace, in God's name, and listening to the message and sacrificing and pushing through and driving, to, well, that doesn't fit this new evolved self. None of that drives me anymore. None of that allows for me to show up. Now it's, how does my message contribute to my family? How does my message help my masculine find his message and his purpose to the world? How do I create pathways through my channeling for this gift of service to evolve, for us to share our union with others? Because it's not about what is being offered, it's about what is being created. It's about the connection. And so that's a whole shift in paradigm. That's a different framework of consciousness altogether. But if I keep driving myself, or if any of us continue to drive ourselves on what used to motivate us, on what used to bring us fulfillment, on what used to push us forward, or what used to create this identity or version of reality, we're not going to find the fulfillment of our soul in the now, and especially not in the new earth, in a new foundational existence. You need to find what you love. As woman, in this now moment, what do you love? Focus yourself on that. If you love the idea of your partner, if you love the idea of family, if you love the idea of self-transformation, if you love the idea of your body transforming, if you love the idea of your art, focus on what you love. That's your purpose. Until you understand every single layer. And for the men, focus on what brings you purpose, what brings you a sense of having purpose in your life, because that's where you'll find your love. That's where you'll find your validation. That's where you'll find that connection. That's where you'll find the reason that you keep doing what you're doing and have the discipline. And it's so simple, yet we've made it so complex, so confusing. We've questioned our biology. We've questioned our very existence as man and woman, where we hold the keys and the gifts for each other by simply being what we are, by simply choosing what we are. And so I would love to invite you, if you are a man and you've listened to this, to really spend some time asking yourself some questions around your future in regards to purpose. What has purpose in your future? If it doesn't have a purpose in your future, let it go. Stop focusing on that. Say goodbye. If there's no purpose for it in your future, there's no purpose for it in your mind. There's no purpose for it in your time. There's no purpose for it in financial investment. And woman, if it's not something that you're in love with in your future, if you're not in love with the idea of creating it, then it's not for you. Look for what does bring you love there. And so although it's been hard for me to look at my future and be like, well, I don't love my work anymore. Is that true? Well, actually, it's not entirely true, because I do love my work. I love that I get to guide women into their medicine and magic. I love that I get to assist women to remember who they are, to build a business that supports their physiology, their biology, their family, their sacred heart's desires. I get to assist women to find that pathway that I'm still finding myself. So it's my embodied wisdom becomes my purpose. My love for my partner becomes my message. My love for my family becomes the echoing out of the ripple. With a tying up of this, if this is something that is loud for you, and I want you to ask yourself from your heart, but from your sacral heart, love, sacral purpose. Every man and woman wants to unify them if they're going into the point of unity, consciousness, and new earth. You want both. You want to have it all. You deserve to have it all. You don't have to sacrifice or tether masculine or feminine anymore. And looking at what is the illusion that I was told? What is the illusion I created? Or what is the illusion that I continue to focus on that is preventing me from having love and purpose? And spend some time navigating that, finding your way, opening a little deeper. If divine partnership is something that is important to you, it is a New Earth foundation. Divine partnership is self-other God or self-other all. In our New Earthers Mystery School, we have 3 hours of training. We do processes, we do blueprint reading, we do blueprint building, we do quantum channels, we do frequency upgrades, we do all the things. And tomorrow we have one specifically on the pattern for those that lose themselves in relationship, to allow yourself to no longer lose yourself in relationship and then have to pull yourself back into self-time. So that push and pull of I'm all in, I'm all out, I'm all in, I'm all out. So those all in, all outers, tomorrow's training will be amazing for you. You can find the links in my link tree where you can join for a sacred exchange of $177 US a month, I think, maybe. Might be 144. You'll have to check. And then we have our direct channeling session as well as other different bonus offerings throughout the months. We do a 3-month process. So this is on divine partnership. This is either creating more divine partnership in your life, creating divine partnership with self, divine partnership with God, divine partnership with all 3 being other. It shows you the Holy Grail, the Holy Trinity, and the support in communion, in the union with God. We look at all different things around our old earth self, infecting our new earth self. Well, I guess you could say that. And we break down the identity. We break down different processes of how to think, because new earth is about present moment forward, present moment future, conscious dreaming. And so that means stepping out of the matrix reality and everything that we've known. And it requires a lot of desire and a lot of time and influence. There are very few people that are actually embodied in New Earth consciousness on the earth. So those that are teaching are not teaching from a New Earth state of being in the most part. So I would definitely recommend this as a place to put yourself if this is important for you. Otherwise, you can find any links to my one-on-one offerings in support for blueprint reading, quantum healing, DAC processes, and all things wealth and divine currency. Thank you. Thank you for receiving this message. If it was something that you liked and enjoyed, please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share this with someone who might get some value from it. All right, until next time, Adonai.